Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a source document that gets right to the heart of a really big topic, heresy, at least within a Christian framework. We're going to look at why it's considered such a critical issue and, how it's actually supposed to be identified. So, right out of the gate, the source material hits you with this. It's not just some dry academic exercise. No, this quote frames the whole discussion with this incredible sense of urgency. It's a call for what it calls high-stakes spiritual alertness. Okay, so let's start right there. Why all the fuss? Why is this vigilance considered so absolutely crucial according to the text? Well, the document argues that one of the church's primary jobs is to act as a guardian of doctrine. And this isn't passive. It's about actively warning believers about what it sees as impending dangers, equipping them with truth, and really promoting a kind of spiritual maturity that helps people guard themselves against false teachings and, false prophets. All right, so that brings us to the big question. What exactly is a heresy? I mean, it's a pretty loaded word. What does the source really mean when it uses it? Right, so according to this source, a heresy isn't just a minor disagreement, like a difference of opinion on a small point. No, it's defined as a belief or a teaching that fundamentally contradicts the absolute essentials, the established, non-negotiable doctrines of the Christian faith, especially as they're laid out in Scripture. And this quote right here from Galatians, man, it really drives home how high the stakes are perceived to be. The text calls it a perversion of the original message. So when you see language like that, you know it's being linked to what it describes as really, really serious spiritual consequences. Okay, so to make this whole thing a bit less, abstract, the source actually provides a kind of map of ideas it labels as heretical. Let's take a look at a couple of examples it gives just to see how they contrast with what the document calls mainline doctrine. Okay, so here's a great example. Right away, you can see a major point of contention centers on the identity of Jesus. The source contrasts what it calls the orthodox view, that he's fully God and fully human, with other ideas, like Arianism, which taught he was a created being and therefore not fully divine, or Docetism, which is the belief that he only appeared to be human. And here's another huge one, the path to salvation. Again, the text contrasts the orthodox view of salvation by grace through faith with a couple of others. You've got Pelagianism, which is the idea that you can basically earn it through your own good works. And then there's universalism, the belief that in the end, all people will be saved, no matter what. And the list just keeps going, covering a really wide spectrum of ideas. You've got some that are super theological, like modalism, which is about the nature of the Trinity. But then it also touches on things that are very practical, very boots on the ground, like the prosperity gospel, which links your faith to how much money you have, or antinomianism, this idea that Christians aren't bound by moral law anymore. So what's with the giant number 2 on the screen? Well, this represents a really crucial point the source makes. It cautions that these beliefs, they often don't just show up one at a time. The text warns that a single group might actually hold to 2 or more of these views simultaneously, creating what it calls these really complex theological systems that can be tough to untangle. Okay, so given all this, the document doesn't just, point out all the problems and then leave you hanging. No, it actually prescribes a specific framework for how believers should respond to all this. And here it is, a pretty clear 4-step framework for discernment. Step 1, it all starts with personal study, really digging into Scripture diligently. Step 2 is about critical thinking. You have to test all teachings. Step 3 is about community, supporting sound doctrine together. And then, only if necessary, you move to step 4, engaging in what the text calls loving confrontation. And look, the source is really clear that this isn't some new idea they just came up with. It anchors this whole framework directly in Scripture. For example, the call to study diligently is tied to a verse in 2 Timothy. And the command to test all teachings is linked right back to 1 Thessalonians. The argument here is that the very tools you need for discernment are already found within the Bible itself. And this is how it all wraps up. The source brings its whole argument together with this final quote. It's this beautiful balance, right? You've got this call to be strong, to stand firm, to be brave, but it's all held together by this one overarching instruction: let everything you do be done with love. And that really leaves us with this final massive question. Now, while this explainer focused on one specific theological framework from our source document, the challenge it raises is, well, it's universal, isn't it? In an age of just endless information, constant noise, how do any of us test what's true? That's a question that goes way beyond theology and hits all of us every single day.